Applying God's Word to every aspect of life. This is Theology Applied.
All right, welcome to another episode of Theology Applied. I'm your host, Pastor Joel Webman with Right Response Ministries. In this episode, I am very privileged to welcome my friend, A.D. Robles. A.D., say hi to the good people.
Hello, everybody. I am glad to be back on the show, man.
A.D., for all of those who don't know, he is on the Fight Laugh Feast network and has been putting out great content for a long time and has been a good friend for at least a couple years, probably over a couple years at this point. I think it was you and Harris came out back in, I believe it was 2021 or 2. So anyways, we've been friends for a while. Yeah. He sits on the board with Right Response Ministries and helps us make decisions for the glory of God and the good of his people. And one of the things I like about AD, besides just his friendship, is I don't even know how to describe it. I don't even know, in terms of biblical categories, I guess discernment would be the closest label I could come up with. But AD, your instincts, like there's a lot of guys who are too smart for their own good. And they may be good theologians, but their instincts, they're just wrong. They're just wrong all the time. Like guys who, something's happening in the world, current event, cultural, political, whatever it might be, and otherwise solid guys who you would buy their book, you would read their stuff, you would listen to their sermons, and yet, they're co-belligerents on one thing, it's like, yes, he was awesome on, standing up against masks and COVID. But then you get to the next thing. It's like, I feel like for the last 4 years, I'm sure God, God's been doing this for decades, but especially the last 4 years, I feel like God has been providentially giving to evangelicals, like every 6 weeks, another IQ test. And A.D. Robles he just is a master of passing the IQ test, whatever it is. It's just like his instincts are on it. Like every time there's a new dividing line, AD is just, you can count on him to take the right side that he's, So I'm just impressed. So because your instincts are just always on.
I'm always right.
Yeah, there you go. Because your instincts are always right. I thought, man, let's get AD on to talk about white pills. And what I mean by that is right now, in terms of the current IQ test that the Lord continues to give us, is like, the issues like, can a Christian vote for Donald Trump? And it's like every 6 weeks there's a new thing, and it just breaks evangelicals' brain, just shatters their brain. People lose their minds. And I'm talking about good guys who otherwise they are co-belligerents on everything. It's like, man, you were in the trench with this, you're in the trench with that. And you start to think, it's this band of brothers. And it's like, we're on the same side, we're brothers in arms, but then there's like the next IQ test and they flunk it. And all of a sudden they're not in the trench anymore. They're on the other side and they're firing at you. And we've seen this happen for 4 years, again and again and again and again, Michael O'Fallon, and then boom, it's like, okay, like he's devoted his life to destroying Christian nationalism. Like how is that, like the biggest problem right now, it's not chopping off kids' genitals, it's Christian nationalists who want the nation to be Christian. Like really. So this happens again and again and again. And you continually have good instincts, the sixth sense. And right now, it's not maybe the level of Michael O'Fallon and Christian nationalism, but again, once again, I feel like we have some splintering in the ranks with, the most recent IQ test, a lot of it having to do with politics and, Donald Trump and his VP, pick with J.D. Vance or, what Project 25, there's all these things. And I feel like the headline of the story right now for Christians should be, Aslan is on the move. Like there's some really, really, really great things happening. And I know you have good instincts. So I think that you probably feel the same way. And I thought we could just do 30 minutes of encouraging our brothers in arms. God is doing something, and now is not the time for despair.
Oh man, that's so good. And by the way, I appreciate all the kind things you said about me. Some of it is true, so I appreciate that. But anyway, yeah, man, there's white pills everywhere, man. You just have to have the eyes to see them. You know what I mean? Like you're always being offered white pills and black pills all the time, and sometimes it's even the same situation before you. You can see it for a certain way, and you feel all black pilled and despairing, Or you can look at it and maybe it's not the greatest news you ever heard, but there are white pills there available. Right now, though, I don't know if you've followed Andrew Torba's feed at all, but
I was going to bring him up. Yep.
He's got so many great tweets where he'll say this is happening and you're blackpilling. You know what I mean? It's like it's just so good because there's just so much out there. So I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yep. So let's start with that because I think I was thinking the same thing. Andrew Torba is a great place to start, and the reason why he's a great place to start is because this is a guy who I think really knows what time it is. And this is not a naive, Barney Fife, happy-go-lucky, everything is sunshine and rainbows kind of guy. That's not who Andrew Torba is. And Andrew Torba, for instance, has been very outspoken about the problem of Zionism, and that, like controlled opposition, that we really, we don't even have a two-party system. It's a one-party system. Whoever wins the election, we know that the true winner who will sweep every state in the Electoral College will be Bibi. Netanyahu will be the true winner, of every election and has been, for decades. And those kind of, my point in bringing that up isn't even to say that that's right, although I do think that that's right. But my point in bringing it up is that's Andrew Torba. Like if you followed his account for, just even a year, much less the last 5 years or something like that, like he is constantly pointing out, the stranglehold of the deep state on all of politics, on all of like media platforms, that the truth has been buried 6 feet underground, that it's all a ploy, it's all a play. And so to see him the last, couple months just relentlessly, it's really amazing. It's been so encouraging. But like multiple times a day, just coming out and when your typical black pillars, are saying like everything is bad and nothing ever happens, the nothing ever happens bros. And Torba's coming out and he's like, no, we're going to win. We're going to win. We're going to win. This just happened. This just happened. This just happened. And talking about how all of it's good, so like Trump picks VP, JD Vance, and your black pillars immediately start posting, well, here's a picture of Vance at the Wailing Wall, kissing the wall, like wearing the little hat, and then we're all supposed to say, yeah, you see JD Vance, or they post how he recently backtracked on, that JD Vance was stalwart for the life of the unborn. And then they show and it's true. He did compromise and he did backtrack. He's still certainly more pro-life than a lot of guys in politics, but it is a concession and it's not, it's discouraging. And with those things, those are the kind of things that usually Torba would highlight, right? That would not be the footnote. That'd be the headline. The headline would be, you're excited and think that we're winning, but that's just because you follow the Daily Wire and he's the kind of guy who usually is crushing the dreams of guys who think that Ben Shapiro's a conservative. Right? Like you're a normie conservative person. Andrew Torba is your worst nightmare. He's constantly crushing your dreams and saying, no. It's far more sinister, far more, bad than you actually think it is. And right now he's like the exact opposite. He's like Elon Musk, is God's using him in great ways. JD Vance, he goes and kisses the wall, but that's the state of our politics. You don't get elected unless you salute Israel. That's just where we are. Every single, like Thomas Massey said, every guy in American politics has an AIPAC handler. So you can't get anywhere unless you do this. That doesn't mean that that's really where he's at. He's playing politics, wait and see in November, blah, blah, blah. Like from here until then, no counter signaling Trump, white pills only. And I just think that that's good instincts.
Yeah, I think so. So I just did a video just today, actually, or I recorded it yesterday, where I was talking about this kind of thing. And I'm sorry to do this to you. I know you're not that into professional sports, but you know about the Super Bowl.
I know.
You know what that is,
I've heard
right?
of
it. It's the one game that decides who's the champion of the league, but it's just one game, right? So it's not like other sports where there's a whole series, the final series of games. It's just one game. And so in that game, you've got to go for broke. If your quarterback's arm's about to fall off, tough luck. You're playing because we got to win this game. There's no tomorrow, right?
Right.
And so it's all about winning that one game. There is no tomorrow. And so you manage that game going for broke. And you got to be perfect. You got to have purity there. Baseball, on the other hand, the regular season in baseball, there's 162 games, Joel. So if you lose a game, there's a game tomorrow too. So, you got to get ready for it. But what happens is you have to manage those games differently. So in the Super Bowl, whatever happens, you've got to win that game. In baseball, you've got to manage your resources over 162 games. So there could be a game where, things are going really poorly for your pitcher, but you don't necessarily want to replace him because you don't want to gas the rest of your relief pitchers for the rest of the series, right? Like, you've got to manage that appropriately. And so what ends up happening is in any particular game, you have less than optimal situations that you just have to deal with, and you have to figure it out because, just because your pitcher, gave up 5 home runs in the first inning, it doesn't mean you pull them, because it doesn't really matter if we win this game. We got to set ourselves up for success, right? And so I think a lot of people, especially Christians, and I was one of them, look at politics like the Super Bowl, where it's like, if we don't get everything right and we don't win this game, this election, it's all over. There's no tomorrow. That's not the case ever. It's not the case. It's more like baseball, where you've got to manage your resources for the future as well. So you're trying to win today, but also you recognize maybe our pitcher just doesn't have it today.
Right.
And I look at these politicians and our situation, like the Wailing Wall is such a funny example because it's so similar to the abortion thing,
right,
where you've got, well, he kissed the wall, so it's all over for him. You know what I mean?
Right.
And here's the thing, like, because some people think J.D. Vance is no better than the Democrats on abortion. That's insane in my opinion, but whatever.
Yeah.
You're well, if you want to take that, fine. But in our situation, there is no non-wall kisser on the ballot.
Right. Exactly.
You're going to be kissing the wall. And if you're going to accept that J.D. Vance is no better than Democrats, that's insane. But if you want to say that, okay, so then there is no good abortion candidate on the ballot. There is none.
Right.
Okay. But we still have a game in front of us, and we still have to figure out how to win. If not today, tomorrow. And so we're looking at managing our resources that we have today. God's given us certain resources, and certain ones he has not given us. He did not give us Dusty Devers for president.
Right.
Right? So we've got to manage with the resources we have now. And so that's where you got to look for these white pills, man, because, yeah, they both kissed the wall. But also, J.D. Vance has said and done a lot of other stuff, too, about Israel and about that whole situation that we can look at and discern the difference between him and Carmela. You know what I mean? Same thing with abortion. Trump, yeah, he's not the greatest on abortion. But when you're looking at winning in the future, because we're not going to win that issue today, it's not the Super Bowl, but we have a series to head towards justice, to head towards a good situation when it comes to abortion. And so we've got to think about our resources and how to manage them today, like a baseball manager. And you look at what J.D. Vance has said in the past, what he's saying now. You look at Trump's actions in the past, because he used to be president, and he did certain things. Listen, the Democrats know what time it is. They look at Trump, and what they're trying to kill him on is the fact that he was proud to appoint the judges that overturned Roe versus Wade. He was.
Yep.
He was proud of that. He is proud of that. And the Democrats know that that's not good for their baby-killing ways.
Right.
But is he perfect? No, he's not perfect. He's not my ideal candidate.
Right.
But we still got to manage that. And so even in those situations where that's kind of a black pill, yeah, the Republicans kind of softened on abortion a little bit. That's a black pill, kiss the wall. That's a black pill. But there's white pills all over the place there too. You just got to see them, and you got to work with what you have.
Right. Amen. Yeah. Not allowing the perfect to be the enemy of the good. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I know this the Super Bowl versus baseball analogy is not perfect, but it is sort of like that. I used to look at politics, and you hear it all the time. This is the most important election of our lifetime, and it's always true, whatever. But they look at it like the Super Bowl, where it's all or nothing. We've got to do everything we can for that election, and think about only that election. And if there's not the perfect solution there, it's almost like you don't even play the game. That's not the way it is. It's a long grind. And we've got to consider it as a long grind. Christ's eventual takeover of all the nations and stuff, like it's a grind. It's going to be a grind most likely, and then we're going to have the situation we want. But the thing is, doesn't mean we don't. It's weird to think that means we don't act unless it's optimal. It's very weird.
Right Response Ministries 2025 conference is a go. This is 3 days, full jam-packed conference with 8 main sessions, 3 to 4 hour-and-a-half long panels, and an all-star super-based lineup of speakers, 15 speakers in all. Who are they? Steve Dace, Jeff Durbin, Orrin McIntyre, Stephen Wolfe, Brian Sauvé, Andrew Isker, John Harris, Eric Kahn, A.D. Robles, Dan Burkholder, the Christian Prince himself, Dusty Devers, Ben Garrett, David Reese, and yours truly, Pastor Joel Webbin. Again, this is April 3rd, 4th, and 5th, 2025, and the early registration is open right now. This is the longest conference with the most speakers we've ever offered, and yet it is our all-time lowest price. The early registration available today is only $140 for an adult. So go to rightresponseconference.com. Again, that is rightresponseconference.com to register right now, because the early registration will not last long. Are you a Christian struggling to find companies that align with your values and beliefs? Well, then Squirrelly Joe's has you covered for all your coffee needs. All of their coffee is hand-selected and roasted fresh every day by a family of fellow believers. Try them out and you'll savor exceptional coffee while knowing that your investment supports a company committed to following God's teachings and upholding truth and righteousness, ensuring that your hard-earned money contributes to the growth of God's kingdom. Stop giving your hard-earned dollars to pagans who support evil. Right Response listeners have access to an exclusive deal. Your first bag of coffee is free. All you have to do is cover the shipping. So head on over to squirrellyjoes.com/right response. Again, that's squirrellyjoes.com/right response to claim your first free bag of coffee today.
Visit thewordsoap.com today. Again, that's thewordsoap.com. Everyone needs soap, so wash yourself in the Word.
Right now, God has been far more merciful than America deserves and far more merciful than the evangelical church deserves in providing for us resources, imperfect resources, to be perfectly clear, but resources nonetheless to move the ball down the field so that we can accomplish more, a lot more.
Yeah.
That, like the idea of being able to limit immigration and close the border. I mean, even like with J.D. Vance, it's like that right there to me is just a massive white pill in the sense that I mean, Trump could have chosen, Nikki Haley, or
my goodness,
oh my gosh, it would have been terrible. Or
that other woman from whatever, Montana or wherever she's from. The one who was always shooting things.
Yeah. Christy Noem, is that who it was?
That's the one. Yeah.
Or Tim Scott,
Sure.
But he didn't, and that's incredibly encouraging thing that right now, it's like evangelicals are like, well, the Republican Party is no longer my party, and you know what? I hate to say this, but I'm glad. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Because what was the GOP when it was considered to be the evangelicals party? Well, what it was guys who never did anything. They didn't do anything.
Yeah.
All they did was just repeat ad nauseum this, a pro-life rhetoric. But these guys weren't pro-life. They did nothing for the unborn. And here's Trump, who, I feel like it's like the two servants. Jesus tells the parable, the two sons. And, the father asks his two sons to go in the field and to work for him. Sure. And, the first son says, no, I'm not going to do it. And the second son says, yeah, sure, Dad, I'll be there. You can count on me. That's been the GOP for 40 years, is the second son. Yeah, sure, Dad. But then he doesn't show up. Trump, is like, the older kid. And again, that's not perfect, because the ideal would be the third son who actually tells his father yes and does the work. Do it, right? So I'm not saying that we can't have, that it can't be improved. Certainly we do want to see better than Trump one day. We want to see, the Christian Prince who, in word and in deed fully acknowledges the Lord Jesus Christ. But I would take MAGA every day of the week and twice on Sunday over George Bush.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's where we're at right now is we have a party that is not, they're not evangelicals. They're just not. This is not an evangelical party. This is a party of kind of, this. I don't know how to describe it, but like a 1990s, almost 1990s Democrat, like Clinton kind of thing. But they kick butt and take names, and actually, I think Trump will do something. Because he's done something before.
Absolutely. I think that's the other thing too about politics. It's all about, listen, it would be great if we had a country full of Christians and our political parties were full of Christians. Again, it's not the reality. It's not the situation that we have. And there's so many reasons for that. I'm not qualified to go into the reasons why that happened, but that's the truth. And so we've got the Republican Party now is not the Christian party. Maybe it used to be. It's not anymore. But we still have a significant seat at that table. They still absolutely try to placate Christians, at least in rhetoric and in some degree in action. That's a good thing. It's a good thing to have even a little bit of resources or political capital that we can use with a party that is not all bad. It's not bad top to bottom, right? So
guys who are saying it is, I've heard guys say like the GOP is now virtually no different from the Democrat Party.
That's insane.
It's insane because it's like if that's the case, then why didn't Dusty Devers run on a Democrat ticket? Why isn't he a Democrat senator? Like you have to keep in mind that the GOP, is it compromised? Yes. Is it distinctly 100%. Christian? No. But it is still conservative enough and broad enough to where Dusty Devers, a full-fledged abolitionist who told people exactly what he was going to do up front. I want to abolish porn. I want to abolish abortion. I want to abolish no-fault divorce. I want to, he straight up said
all that stuff.
Said all out loud and won, and he won on a GOP ticket as a Republican.
Right.
As a Republican state senator. So the party that still allows for Dusty Devers is a hell of a lot better than the party that wants to shoot Trump in the head.
Right. And I think also the other thing that we need to keep in mind too is that's the party that is winnable. Like the Christians could actually take over that party and be the leading voice. And hey, if you want to join us and you're a Hindu, fine, but we're going to be doing Christian things here. You know what I mean? Like, okay, like that's how it is. So we could still do that. It's still possible, and it's still winnable. And I think effort should be put into that. But it's definitely, I mean, that's very different than the other side of this. I mean, the other side of this is upside down. The other side of it is completely against Christianity. The other side of it thinks Christianity is bigoted. You know what I mean? So we should be grateful, I think, to God that there is still a place for us. It's not as great as it used to be, because it could easily be that both parties don't give a flying rip what Christians say or do or think. That's a situation that does exist out there. So anyway, yeah, to me, a lot of that rhetoric of, it's no better than the Democratic Party and stuff like that. First of all, I don't think people that say that really believe it. It's just a talking point. And second of all, that's the mindset of the Super Bowl. Right? We don't have a party because it's not the perfect party. It's not the party that does everything that they should do. It's not, there's no purity there, right? You think that politics is all or nothing. And by the way, by its nature, it isn't that. That's never that.
Yeah.
Even in the Bible, when you have good, this is another thing, like you read the Bible of the various kings and stuff. Of course, those politics are different than ours, but, there are kings and they're doing these great things. They get commended by God. Can you imagine God commending you? You did what was right in his eyes. Even those people are compromisers. Even those people did a mix of good and bad. So it's like we need to deal in reality. The Bible deals in reality. Mm-hmm. It's honest about those kings that were after God's own heart, but also they didn't cut down the high places.
Right.
You would think that would be where you would start if you're an Israelite, the high places. But they don't. And yet they're still commended by God. See, the Bible deals with reality as it actually is. Politics as it actually is. And it's not so easy. Like I like to quip sometimes, like if I was emperor for the day, I would do this all immediately. It's not so easy. Like even if you're emperor for the day, you do still have to deal with reality. You can't just do anything you want. The people will kill you.
Right.
You know what I mean? They will revolt and they will have your head.
Right.
So it's not like, it's the easiest thing in the world. And in our system, it's even more difficult because there's voting and things like that. So we just, this is the biggest change to my politics, because I admit that I've changed my view on this, because I used to say things that I don't agree with now. But politics is always it is the art of the deal. There's always deals being made. You're always going to have to deal with people that get you some of what you want, and then some of what you don't want.
It's the realm of the possible, not the realm of the perfect.
Yeah.
It's like what can you actually, what can be unburdened by what has been. No, but it's what can be, not what should be. Obviously, what should be is your guiding force, your virtues, and the guiding force that brings you into the political realm that's informing every single one of the decisions you're making. But at the end of the day, the decision you're making is a best possible scenario, not an idealistic scenario. Politics is not for Peter Pan. Politics is not Never Ever Land. Politics is not where you sit down with a blank page and you write a fairy tale. Politics is, here's real people, real situation, real world. Now put this together. Not the ideal that you wish you had. This is what you have. And you now must assemble the best possible, not the perfect, but the best possible scenario that you can, given the pieces that you have. And I think that right now, with the lay of the land, it's like, well, why don't we have a Dusty Devers type Christian prince running for president of the United States? Here's the hard truth, right? So this one is a black pill. The reason we don't have that is because America is not pro-life. It's just not. Sure. And I'm talking about American conservatives. Republican voters they're not actually pro-life. They're not. Maybe they were once upon a time. They're not anymore. They would not vote for him. They would not vote for him. There is no possible way.
You would.
Yep, we would.
Abolition Rising would. But the thing is, there's just not enough of us.
Right. And so then you have someone like Trump. And here's the deal. On one hand, I do think that he's moved to the left on the issue of life. And I've publicly on my podcast said, Mr. Trump, you need to repent of this. You need to believe upon the Lord Jesus Christ. You need to stand stalwart as a defender for the unborn. And I'll continue to say that. I will continue to call him. I think that's part of the church's role, is a prophetic role of calling kings and princes to repentance. And so I'll continue to do that. That said, I think he's moved to the left. I think he's compromised. That said, there is, and this one's hard for bright-eyed, bushy-tailed evangelicals, but politicians, AD, I don't know if you know this, but they lie sometimes. Did you know that?
I've heard.
Yeah. So I've been reliably informed that that's a part of politics. And so I'm not saying, that doesn't mean that, I'm not saying, and therefore, Donald Trump, once he's elected, he's going to, put a federal ban on abortion, day one in office. I'm not saying that. I'm not predicting that. But I do know that Trump governed far to the right of how he campaigned back in his first term. So he campaigned as a pretty secular, squishy Republican. I mean, he campaigned to the left of George Bush and then governed far to George Bush's right.
Sure.
So who's to say? I can't say. I don't want to have a double standard here. So I can't say that's what he's doing again right now. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not a prophet or the son of a prophet. But in the reverse, you cannot definitively say that Trump is not being at least a little bit strategic here, knowing the populace, knowing the times and where we're currently at, and knowing what's required in order to get elected in these degenerate states of America, and that he won't do exactly, it's not just a possibility. We're talking about, would he potentially do something that he already did, that he's already done before, campaigning a little bit to the left and then governing a little bit to the right. I think that's entirely possible, especially with J.D. Vance as his VP pick.
Yeah.
Are you desiring to change your financial trajectory and build multi-generational wealth for your children and grandchildren? Our sponsor, Private Family Banking Partners, invites you to join a growing number of like-minded individuals, families, and entrepreneurs who are working together to form a unique part of the parallel economy. With Private Family Banking, you will learn how to establish a privatized banking system that will increase the value of the money and savings that you already have flowing through your life. Join this growing community today as a part of putting post-mill talk into post-mill action by contacting a Private Family Banking partner today by emailing them at banking@privatefamilybanking.com. Also, see the show notes below to schedule a discovery call and get a free copy of the ebook Protect Your Money Now: How to Build Multi-Generational Wealth Outside of Wall Street and Avoid the Coming Banking Meltdown. Our beef supply is under attack. More than ever, the industry for fake industrial-produced meat is underway. As Reformed post-mill Christians, the founders of Domion Ranch seek to honor Christ's rule and continue building His kingdom on earth by supplying Christians with high-quality beef for the journey. We believe in excellence, and that is why Domion Ranch works as a collective with multi-generational ranchers across Texas to bring you the best in great tasting and nutritious beef. Our motto is that kingdoms were never built on salads alone. Eat beef and subdue the earth. And one more thing, don't forget to enter the Domion Ranch Super Summer giveaway for some delicious Wagyu beef, a mouth-watering addition to your freezer. Click the link in the description and enter to win.
And at the end of the day, again, we don't like this. This is not the way it should be. We should have a much bigger influence on the country than we do. We don't. That's okay. So, but the thing is, when you think about the kinds of people that you can influence, even if it's indirectly, even if there's degrees of separation, J.D. Vance is that kind of guy. And Pete Buttigieg, or whatever, I don't even know if we speak the same language. But the thing is, but this is the difference there. If you're not willing to admit the difference between a guy like J.D. Vance and a guy like Buttigieg, and your ability to move forward with either one of those persons in the VP or president slot or whatever it is, like you're just not being honest with yourself. You know what I mean? Buttigieg needs Jesus, just like J.D. Vance needs Jesus, but one of those persons is way more reachable and influenceable, and someone that will have your back, and someone that actually hates your guts and thinks you're scum. Like, there's an obvious difference.
Right.
And look, Vance isn't perfect. We get it. But the thing is, he also says stuff like, quote, "We are effectively run in this country by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable in their own lives and the choices that they've made, so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too."
Amen.
This guy gets it.
He gets it.
He gets it on a big level.
That's huge.
And you know what? Do I know if he's playing politics with the abortion thing, or if that's really how he feels now? I have no idea. But you see, this is the thing. Like, on a fundamental level, this guy is someone you can work with.
Yes.
And that's the thing. In politics, you've got to work. You got to find people you can work with.
Right.
You know what I mean? You've got to work with people. And the reality is, Buttigieg, as much as you might try to work with him, he loves having sex with other guys.
Right.
And they've kidnapped a child to grow into another homosexual.
He loves human trafficking, children, and gay sex.
Right.
And going on paternal leave.
If you don't see the difference there, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, you're just, honestly, you're just not dealing in reality. That's the thing.
And
Christians have to be experts at dealing in reality. And we do this all the time. And the thing is, a lot of people pointed this out. Actually, one person in particular, man, I forget the name. Maybe it was Philip Derrida. He was talking about, how, when it comes to the abortion issue, all of these great people that we love. I love all the abolitionists. When they go to the abortion clinics, they're begging women not to kill their children, right? They're begging them not to. They're praying with them. They're talking with them and all that kind of stuff. There are other things that they could be doing, but they don't. because they're doing a cost-benefit analysis, and they understand that we got to think about the future. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I saw
Our
that
future,
post. It was
my kids' future.
It was a
You know,
good
we gotta
post.
think
It was
of-
hard. I have no doubt that probably upset a lot of abolitionists, but
I'm sure it did.
I saw it, and I didn't retweet it because I'm trying to be a little bit more charitable. But
I love the abolitionists.
good.
I'm not trying to throw any shade. I think they're making the right choice. I'm just telling you, when it comes to what they do at the abortion clinics, they're making the right choice.
Right.
That's what I would support. That's what I would do. But you got to be honest with yourself.
Right.
When you make those choices, you are dealing in reality there, because you know that what could be done, that would be probably strategically really awful. Even
Right.
if you would be justified. Even if God would have your back and you'd be with him in heaven and he'd be saying, well done, good and faithful servant, and all of that, you don't do it because you're dealing in reality. And the thing is, you got to bring that into politics too.
right. So and I know what you're talking about. You're like doing more stuff, and we'll be careful here.
I'm not
Right.
going any further than that.
Right. Yeah. But yes, you could go further, and you know what, I posted about how I love my born children more than I love my enemies' unborn children. That doesn't mean I don't
Yeah.
love my enemies' unborn children at all.
Of course.
It's simply natural affections. I love mine more, and I love mine more because I'm commanded to. If I didn't,
Yeah.
then I'm disqualified as a pastor, and arguably even as a Christian, worse than an unbeliever, denying the faith. And my point of this is, if some woman abducted one of my born children and had them in the back of the car, and is stepping on pedal to the metal and heading off to a clinic where there's going to be a hitman that she's going to pay to euthanize my child. I'm not going to hold a sign and preach the gospel.
No, you're not.
I'm going to
And
go a
neither would
lot
any of
further.
us, yeah.
I'm going to go a lot further. And every abolitionist we know, likewise, would go a lot further. Why? Because they're good men. They're good men.
Absolutely.
We're not putting them down. They're good men. Of course they would go further because they should. And so, yeah, there's more that could be Doug Wilson said this back in the day. I don't know if you remember it, but talking about Lincoln. And it's good to see, talking about white pills and, ways we can unify. It's good to see that the left has finally figured out that Abraham Lincoln was gay. I have no pushback whatsoever. I'm like, hey, I've been on that train for I've thought he was a gay president, for years now. And so it's good to see the left catching up to speed. But my point is that, Doug, back in the day, he said, do you think that a civil war in America at the cost of 650,000, lives of our sons bleeding out on this soil, do you think that was worth it to abolish slavery? And everybody, it's just this, everybody says what they're supposed to say, so people are like, oh, of course it was. Slavery is atrocious, and we should have done whatever it takes, and not just 650,000 lives. It should have been, it would have been worth it if it was 6.5 million lives, and on it goes. And then, when Doug is asking this question to evangelicals, to Christians who are, purportedly, pro-life, he says, then why aren't we taking up arms and going to the level of all-out war to save the lives of unborn? You're talking about there were this many slaves, X many slaves in the United States, whatever it was, 2 million or something like that. But there's been arguably 60 to 70 million, and that doesn't even track all the numbers of, early on abortions with pills and things like that. But 60 to 70 million dead babies in the last 50 years because of abortion. Why are you, not going to war, taking up arms, storming the White House? Why are you not doing all these things that we hinted out earlier? There's more that could be done. We'll just leave it there. But we know there's a lot more that could be done. Why are you not doing that more? Why are we not fighting a war? And there's only two answers. One is that you either have to say, because I'm utterly cowardly and compromised. That's why. The North under gay Abraham Lincoln was better than me to go and fight the South, over the ending of slavery that was on its way out, by the way, anyways. And there's like 11 other European countries that abolished slavery without a war. And the amount of money that the North, the Union, spent on the war, they could have actually bought to release. They could have paid the South for every single one of their slaves and released them. But no. Let's not invite logic into it. No, I think Abraham Lincoln was absolutely, and the abolitionists, I might add, were absolutely justified for sparking this war that abolished slavery, because we couldn't wait for 2 more years. But no, it had to be right then. And what did Abraham Lincoln do as he's flying the flag of emancipation? That ultimately is a thin veneer for his real accomplishment, which was to seize and centralize power from the states that ultimately destroyed the nation from that point on. And we've been living under the consequences ever since. But no, it was just, it was right. Okay, well then you have to admit that you were compromised today. If that was a just war, then it would be 10 million times more just to fight a war over abortion. So you're compromised and cowardly. Or here's the other, that's one answer. So one answer is, I'm a coward. The second answer is, that was an unjust war, a terrible war. Abraham Lincoln was gay. And, either whether it's spelled G-A-Y or G-H-E-Y, nonetheless, any way you slice it, he was gay. Terrible war. Slavery was going to end, and there were better ways to end it. And it wouldn't have been immediate, but it would have ended, and it would have been better. Cost-benefit analysis, they should have done that. Yep. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing today. That's why I'm not, going to abortion clinics and doing more than simply preaching the gospel and holding a sign and offering to adopt babies. That would be my answer. The second one, that would be yours, right?
Well, it's in the short version. In the second answer, the short way to say it is, I'm dealing with political realities here.
Yep. Dealing with the real world.
The real world, as it really exists. I'm doing the cost-benefit analysis. Look, maybe it would be different if there was one more clinic in the entire country, and there was just the one where all the ladies from all over the states, flew in to go to this clinic. You know what? Strategically, I could see doing something else.
Right,
you know what I'm saying?
We won't say what, but something. You could do something else.
I could see it. I could see it theoretically.
Because that's so well put, because now we're in Super Bowl territory.
Now we're in the Super Bowl.
Right.
Yeah. And now we've got a different cost-benefit analysis.
Right.
And so, listen, like, it's different than politics, but it actually isn't, because politics is a war of a different kind.
Yep.
And so, I saw Brian Sauvé say this today too. I thought it was so helpful. He said that we're in a war, we're not in a bar fight.
Right.
And that's the same kind of thing as the Super Bowl, right? The bar fight is the Super Bowl.
Right.
It's over at that point. There's no fight tomorrow. You know what I mean?
You get every swing in that you can, because it's going to be done in 2 minutes.
Get every swing in you can. Defend yourself to the death if you have to, because it's the bar fight and there's nothing going on tomorrow.
Right.
But in a war, it's different. It's totally different. There's a fight tomorrow too. We're going to be fighting until this is solved somehow.
Right.
And so you've got to do different. You don't go for broke necessarily on the first day, unless strategically you think that could actually end it on the first day.
Right.
It's a totally different mindset. And so in politics, is there a sort of compromise that some of us are engaged in? Well, yeah, that's the nature of politics. That is, you can't compromise yourself. So we got to disconnect this from the leaders, right? Like, it is objectively not good for any leader, all of the presidents we've ever had, to be in power and do basically nothing about abortion. That's not good for them. They're going to stand before God. They're going to answer for that. It's not good for them. But I'm not the president. I'm not, and so I'm playing politics differently than they are. You know what I mean? It's
right.
I'm not, I answer to God for my vote. Of course I do, but we have different goals. I think sometimes than the actual leader themselves. And so that's such a good example. I'm so glad you brought that up about abolition and the Civil War and all that. It's all very helpful, and I think once you kind of accept politics in reality, in the real world, as they really are, they're not pure. It's not a purity game. It's not that kind of thing. It's not like theology proper, where like you want perfection, you want purity, you want to, it's exact. You've got a word from the Lord. It's an exact word. It means what it means. Politics is different. There's so many different outcomes and compromises that you could do to move the ball forward. But the key is to move the ball forward and to not be the guy like, in the parable, someone just made fun of me for using this parable, but it's just an analogy. You can't be the talent guy with the one talent that buries it.
Right.
Listen, God's not expecting you to make 10 talents out of one talent. That's not how he judged you. But he is expecting some return. And so you might look at this election like we've got one talent. Neither of these guys are all that great. But you've got to get a return. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense to be like, well, I'm just not going to do anything. I don't want to do anything wrong. I'm too scared that I might sin, so I'm not going to do anything. I don't think that logic works in almost anything that you do in life.
Mm. Yep. All right. Well, let's go ahead and land the plane. Any final thoughts? Any final white pills you want to throw out for guys to be encouraged by?
I don't know, man. I think all of the activity that's happening in politics and the assassination attempt and Biden being cooed, all this stuff. There's a lot happening, and I think that you could look at it and be like, oh wow, my country is a mess, but I think it signals that there's lots of changes happening, lots of things that are being revealed. And I think that people, that are voting for Trump, a lot of people are looking at that vote as like, I'm fed up with the entire system.
Right.
It's a vote against the system at this point, I think, a lot of the time. And so I'm very white-pilled by that because I don't think that, and we've talked about this, I don't think we're voting our way out of this one. I think something is going to give, and there's so many signs of things about to give that I'm excited to see what happens, and I'm very, very confident that God's going to keep his people, and yeah, I'm excited, man.
Amen. Well, thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Yeah, God bless.